So today is a special video. This video, we're gonna honor Bruce Lee. And in honor of Bruce Lee, I am wearing a Bruce Lee t-shirt. That's Muhammad Ali. I don't actually have a Bruce Lee t-shirt. I have this though. So in honor of Bruce Lee, I have a Bruce Lee action figure. Okay, this isn't actually Bruce Lee, it's Fei Long from Street Fighter. But it's highly appropriate for this video. Because in this video, we're going to rank the best Bruce Lee inspired video game characters. There's a twist. It's not just gonna be who just looks like Bruce Lee or who just moves like Bruce Lee. The main criteria is who actually embodies his philosophy behind Jeet Kune Do, the philosophy he came up with. The meaning of Jeet Kune Do or JKD is the way of the Intercepting Fist, which Bruce Lee came up with training multiple styles of training and martial arts. He put what he felt worked best in every range and style and made it his own. And he encouraged others to do the same. To the point, he's being credited as the grandfather of MMA. Or was it godfather of MMA? One of the two. He also came up with the best drink in the world. You know what his favorite drink was? What the hell? He did embody the idea of being like water, to flow. And that's one of the criteria we're going to go over today with the ranking of these video game characters. And you might be surprised who I place as number one. This is Art of War Cat, where we like to blend fiction with reality and see how it applies to our everyday training, even if it's just to have fun. So let's get started and see who I have ranked at my bottom tier in this Bruce Lee inspired video. Again, just to reiterate, this listing is based on the criteria of who embodies Bruce Lee's philosophy. We do take into account how they look and how they move, but JKD's principles are actually number one. And the one who falls at the bottom of this list is, who I introduced in the beginning, Fei Long. Now, Fei Long uses a lot of winding, looping strikes in his combos, if you ever played Street Fighter, which defeats the principles behind Jeet Kune Do's simplicity. Simplicity was the main factor because Bruce Lee wanted his philosophies to be applicable to anyone who trained. Now, if you know my channel, we like to do drills that relate to what we're talking about. So when it comes to simplicity, what you want to be able to do is not throw big looping strikes, especially if you're in combat sports or even self-defense. You want your strikes to be simple and easy to apply and fluid with each action. Now, I'm not a JKD guy, so to speak. But I do always apply those philosophies, at least these three main principles that we're going to talk about today. And when it comes to simplicity, you really want to focus on the fundamentals. If it's boxing, nothing more fundamental than a jab, cross, hook combo. But what you want to be able to do when you're throwing this combo is trying not to telegraph. So you want your strikes to flow fluidly when you're throwing them, especially that lead jab. So you don't want to wind up when you're throwing this jab. You want it so that they don't see it coming. So throwing your jab should be launched at optimal range. Here I'm a little too close. Here is ideal because it looks like I can't reach them, but with follow through and snap, I get a nice jab. And then you use that snap and jab to follow through with your rear cross. And then from there, you have your long lead hook. Now, if you're going to add footwork into it, again, you want to use simplicity. What you can do to land your hook if you find you're too far is you want to hide your footwork with your punches. And how you hide your footwork is simple. When you throw your jab, you can hide your footwork with your cross. That allows you to get closer for that lead hook. So jab, cross, and I use that cross to hide that I'm stepping in. The fist hides this movement, and then I land my lead hook. So we're using not only simple strikes, simple combos, we're using simple movements. I only need a little step, and all I needed for that step was this to hide me getting in closer. So the next tier I got and only edges Fei Long by a little bit is martial law from Tekken. This may surprise most of you, as martial law is probably the closest as a carbon copy of Bruce Lee, at least in terms of aesthetic and even his general movements. But like Fei Long, he falls into that category of preset combos for the most part. Yes, in Tekken you can adapt and throw different things, but a lot of his best movesets are based off of how you chain his moves correctly. Whereas Jeet Kune Do likes to adapt. There should be a flow. While we're talking about direct movement and flow, we also want to talk about direct interception, meaning you want to keep your defense simple, but you also want to intercept early. Tekken is kind of based off of blocking or timing it at the last minute to land those counters. But in reality and in Jeet Kune Do, you want to intercept it early. And how we can practice that alone, if you're training with a bag and you want to throw some counter shots, the easiest and simplest thing you can do is practice by pushing the bag and trying to time a counter on its way in. But you don't want to wait too late. So if I throw the bag and I counter here, this is a little late. Look, my punch didn't reach its full range. I need to find when the bag is at its optimal distance that I land my strike. So if I push the bag, I'm going to throw it here and then follow through. Notice I used my jab first because it was my closest tool to the bag before landing this. And if I did throw my cross, initially it will be there. And I position myself so that I'm out of the way of harm. Notice I also angle off a little bit. A slight step off to the side allows me to land a nice counter punch while the bag is passing by me. Or if I was simulating a strike, it would pass by me and I land my counter. And you do the same thing for kicks, which is probably even ideal because you have longer range with your kicks. And again, you keep it simple, like what we talked about in the first tier. If it comes in, I throw my kick from here. I can always follow through with strikes from there. So keep your counters direct and intercept early. So the next one on my list, Liu Kang from the OG Mortal Kombat games, which I played when it first came out. Now, again, this might surprise you that I may not have put him at number one, but what was cool about the old school Mortal Kombat games was spacing. So the spacing in that game to counter and strike was relatively realistic. Yes, you had the special moves, like Liu Kang had his fire projectiles and he had that flying kick. Again, that flying kick is still an homage to the cinematic versions of Bruce Lee, but the counters were relatively simple. You had to be at the right distance at the right time to land your strikes, which does, in fact, respect JKD's principles. But the game was also limited. That style of game was limited. You only had so many moves and everyone's generic strikes were pretty much the same. Whereas Bruce Lee would want you to be able to adapt to any style rather than just be a carbon copy of any other person or style. So who I have at number one is Jan Lee from Dead or Alive.
Hold up, who's that? Oh, that's Jackie Bryant from Virtua Fighter. I completely forgot about him. I didn't actually rank him. How about you guys rank him in the comments?
Let's talk more action!
Now, Jan Lee doesn't look like Bruce Lee. At least he looks the least like Bruce Lee among the rest of the characters on this tier list. But his actual fighting style, even labeled in the game, is Jeet Kune Do. I know, technically Jeet Kune Do is not an actual fighting style. It's a philosophy. But he embodies it in this game nonetheless. And yes, it's based off of Bruce Lee's way of doing it with his Wing Chun background tied in, but that's what we want to do. We want to be able to take that philosophy and add it to our own skills and what we know and make it our own. And how we're going to do that is we want to be able to adapt. We also want to have what we call economy of motion. Just like we talked about earlier with non-wasted movement and non-telegraphic movement, other than using those direct approaches, you want to make sure that your movements make sense. So whatever you do, make sure that the follow-through makes sense. But you also want to be able to adapt, so you're not relying on a preset combination. So let's say I want to throw my jab cross hook combo, jab cross hook, if I want to respect the motion, I always want to keep my hands right back up. So you want to practice bringing your hands back up in a position that you're defensive, but also in a way that you'll be able to follow through nicely with something else. So I'm a big fan of coming back to the position you once came from. So if I'm throwing my jab cross hook, I like to return back here rather than a full follow through. Now, everyone has a different style, but I'm applying the JKD principle in the sense of economy of motion because I want to be able to be ready for the next step. So if I throw my hook and I return here, by returning here, I'm ready to throw another hook. On that same side, I'm also ready to throw a body shot if I want. Another way I'm better here by returning is I can also turn this into a defensive movement and come off on the other side for another counter. I have more options than if I were to follow through here. If I follow through here, then I have a lot less options. I can really only follow through with my rear side. So find opportunities that you can adapt the best so that you can continuously attack if you wanted to, because that's what JKD is about, is a continuous non-stop pressure. They like to use the quarter beat and continue attacking. So if I were to do this, I can keep going on with my strikes because every movement made sense and every movement positioned me for the next attack. So try to make sure that your attacks and movements get you in a position to follow through with something else, whether it's offense or defense. So that's my tier list. And again, the criteria was not just looking at the aesthetics or just the movements of Bruce Lee. We're looking at who embodies the philosophies behind Jeet Kune Do and applies it in their respective style. And based on that, I have Jan Lee from Dead or Alive as our winner JK dinner. Made that one up myself. No, in all seriousness, Jan Lee really respects the idea of formlessness, which is a concept behind Jeet Kune Do. Be formless, like Bruce Lee's favorite drink. Water! Okay, I'm sorry, I'll stop. But I'm paraphrasing Bruce Lee here. He said water can flow or it can crash. It can take any shape. You put water in a cup, it becomes a cup, and so on. And if we apply those principles into our respective art or craft, then I really do think we will be more efficient. But what do you guys think? Who do you have as your number one? Did you agree with my list? Let me know in the comments. And if you have any suggestions on who I can cover, whether it's your favorite fictional character from a video game, anime, comic books, or even your favorite martial artist and we can break them down, let me know a suggestion in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.